Hello, Kelly Williams here, exercise physiologist and holistic wellness coach with the IAWP. And today I'm going to talk to you about 5 tips that I think are very important to help you really maximize your benefit when you're doing your cardiovascular workouts. Whether you call it cardio or aerobic or cardiovascular, doesn't matter. Cardio is short and easy, so I'm going to use that term during this little video. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I really want to help you maximize your sessions. And so let's just jump right into these tips. Tip number 1 is related to the variables in your sessions. And what I mean there is time, frequency, and your heart rate intensity. The American College of Sports Medicine put together guidelines on exercise, and really in terms of your cardiovascular fitness, they recommend that you do at least 3 days per week for at least 20 minutes in an appropriate intensity, heart rate intensity. And what they found is that if you didn't do at least 3 days per week, or you didn't do at least 20 minutes and you weren't in the right heart rate intensity, that your body just didn't feel the need or wasn't challenged enough to make the adaptations that you're trying to accomplish. And really, what are we trying to accomplish? When you're doing cardio workouts, you're wanting to improve the function and the fitness of your cardiovascular system. And so your heart would get better at pumping more blood per beat. Your lungs get better at getting more oxygen into the blood. And then your muscles get better at taking that oxygen out of the blood and using it. So that's the purpose of cardio. And if you're not challenging your body frequently enough, in the right amount of time, or at a good intensity, it just doesn't make those adaptations. So tip number 1 is work out for at least 3 days a week, 20 minutes, and at a good intensity. Now, as you get more physically fit and you're progressing and you've got more time in your schedule, you've got more days, by all means, on some days, once you've built up to it, do 40 or 45 minutes or an hour, or go 5 days a week. You're going to get more than the minimum benefit by doing those things, and that's going to help you. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is, let's talk about the intensity. Mentioned in the previous tip, you want to go at an appropriate heart rate range in order to challenge your body. If you go too hard or too easy, your body doesn't adapt as well. So I prefer to use the Carvonin formula, and it is a formula for calculating your target heart rate range during cardiovascular exercise that uses your resting heart rate. So it makes it a little bit more customized or individualized to you. And so let's look at this. First of all, you're going to take your resting heart rate. And if you don't know how to take your resting heart rate, it's pretty simple. First of all, if you've got a heart rate monitor, use your heart rate monitor. But typically you want to do it first thing in the morning or pretty soon after you get up when you haven't been very active. Sit in a chair for about 10 minutes or so and let your heart rate be at rest. And then next to your Adam's apple area and this long muscle in your neck, there's a little gap. You can gently press in there and just kind of move it around until you find your pulse beating. I recommend taking your pulse for about 30 seconds and multiply it by 2, or for a full minute. And another place where you can do it is on your wrist. There's a bone right here, so if you lay your wrist down, there's a bone here, and then there's a tendon here. In between that is a space, or in between those is a space. And you can gently press there as well. Use 2 fingers, not your thumb, and you can find your pulse. Don't press too hard, and you'll just press gently and you'll find it. Same thing, count it for 30 seconds or a minute and jot down that number, and that would be your resting heart rate. The next thing is calculating your age-estimated maximum heart rate. And you could go to a university at the Human Performance Lab and get an exercise physiologist to take you through a max heart rate test, but it is not much fun and it's really not even recommended for most people. It can be a little dangerous in terms of falling on a treadmill or those kind of things because you would be at maximum. So it's not necessary. You can take 220 minus your age and get your age estimated maximum heart rate. Now again, it's estimated, so whenever you're using your target heart rate range and you're using this formula, use it as a guide. Go by how you feel as well, and you'll figure out a good intensity for yourself using this formula. 220 minus your age is your estimated maximum heart rate. The next one is your heart rate reserve. So you take your maximum heart rate that you just calculated and your resting heart rate that you have, and that gives you your heart rate reserve. And you'll see it sometimes written as HR reserve, but you'll use this number as well, so jot that down. Next, I want you to look at some percentages. I want you to take 50%, 60%, 70%, 80%, and even 85% of that heart rate reserve number that you just calculated, and then add back in your resting heart rate. The American College of Sports Medicine recommends that, for a very light intensity, so this would be great for beginners, start with something around 50 to 60% as your range, so 50 to 60%. For light intensity, 60 to 70%. For moderate, 70 to 80. And then to be at the higher end of your intensity heart rate range, about 75 to 85% of your heart rate reserve, and then add back in your resting heart rate would be a good training range. And you can progress as you get more fit. Now, let's look at an example. This is a 50-year-old male with a resting heart rate of 62 beats per minute. And he wants to train at a 60 to 70% heart rate range, or target heart rate range. So you take 220 minus 50, and that gives you your age estimated maximum heart rate of 170. Take 170 minus the 62 resting heart rate, and that gives you a heart rate reserve of 108. Now, take 60% of 108, add back in the resting heart rate. Take 70% of 108 and add back in your resting heart rate. Excuse me. And you'll get a range of 126 to 137 as the training range. So that's how you would use this formula to calculate your training heart rate. Tip number 3, get some good variety in your workouts. So if you go to a gym, you've got an elliptical, a treadmill, a recumbent bike, an upright bike, a stepper, possibly a rower. There's several different modes of exercise that you could get there. You could get on the treadmill and just go 20 minutes. That'd be fine. But wouldn't it be a little bit more fun if you did, let's say you were going to do a 25-minute workout. What if you did 5 minutes on the treadmill, 5 minutes on the upright bike, 5 minutes on the stepper, 5 minutes on the elliptical, and 5 minutes on the rower? Sounds a little bit more fun, doesn't it? Now, how do you make that equal? You find the variables on each piece of equipment that keeps you in your target heart rate zone that you've just calculated. So you find the incline and the speed on the treadmill that put you in your zone. You find the step height and the rate of stepping on the stepper that keeps you in your training zone. You find the pedal RPM and the gear level on the bike, and so on for each piece of equipment. And your body does not know if you are on a treadmill or a bike or an elliptical. It just knows that you're challenging it, and it will meet that demand. So that's a great way to reduce boredom, have some fun, and get a variety. Plus, it's more functionally better for you to get a variety. And so that's tip number 3, get variety and figure out how to make them equal. Tip number 4 is change the intensity during your session. It's better if instead of, let's just say your heart rate was in that 126 to 137 range, and you get on the treadmill and you keep it at the exact same speed. Once you've warmed up and you've gotten to your kind of in your range, if you're maintaining, let's say, a speed of 3.5 miles an hour and on a 2% grade, and that puts you in your zone, you wouldn't necessarily want to do that for the entire workout. maybe for every 2 minutes, increase the speed or the incline on the treadmill and take yourself to the high end of your range for a minute, and then bring it back down to that previous setting. And repeat that every 2 minutes throughout your workout, and you'll find that not only is that more enjoyable, it does give you a better training effect. Plus, it trains you at getting, closer to your higher intensity in that range, and then eventually you can move up to the next target heart rate range percentages as your fitness increases. So mix up your intensity during the workout session. And then lastly, I recommend using a heart rate monitor. It's an easy way to really know what your heart rate is in real time all the time, so you don't have to stop and take your pulse or put your hands on the machine, and you don't know if those things work that accurately anyhow all the time. So this would be a great way to, if you invest in a heart rate monitor, you can use that to your advantage. So before you get started though, check with your physician, make sure there's nothing going on that you need to be aware of cardiovascularly that needs to be addressed. Always do a warm-up first, and then start out your first couple of minutes a little bit slower, and then gradually get into your training zone. Over time, you can increase your intensity as you get more fit. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed those 5 tips. I hope they really help you maximize your cardiovascular sessions and that you really enjoy them. And until next time, be well, be grateful, and keep working on being entirely fit. Have a great day. Bye-bye.